Over 30 heroes just got buffed, including some XP laners we rarely see, plus major jungle adjustments that could shake up the meta. The patch notes are way too long this update, but no worries, we'll break down each hero buff in a simple yet informative way. Let's start with the game-changing buff to Rafaela. Rafaela's passive has been reworked, and now she has the ability to instantly resurrect an ally.
Huh?
No doubt this will shake up the meta, so to keep it from being too overpowered, they gave it a really long cooldown that scales with the death timer, so the longer the game, the longer the cooldown. Take note that this skill can be easily interrupted even by basic attack, and will go on a 40-second cooldown if it does. So since it's global anyway, it's safer to use it from the base. Good news for Lesley mains. Her skill 1 now gives 0.5 seconds of unbreakable camouflage right after activation, even if she takes damage. Meanwhile, her ultimate's crit chance gain scaling has been increased, and her passive got adjusted. She can now gain 1% crit damage for every 1% physical penetration. Moonton made this change to make Malefic Gun more compatible with her, since Lesley's a sniper. Moving on to Ixia, who also got a solid buff. Aside from her passive lifesteal from non-hero units getting increased, she also got a new effect. Every time you trigger your passive, or the third attack on the same target, it now slows them by 25% for 1 second. And her ultimate got a massive cooldown reduction, making it even more likely for Ixia to enter the meta, especially with how broken her ultimate already is. Meanwhile, her skill 1 now gives a faster movement speed boost on hit, with improved width and quicker cast speed. But they removed the 40% slow on enemies, since she already gets a slow from her new passive. They also slightly lowered her attack range, just to balance out all the buffs she got. For Bruno, the max stacks were reduced to 8, but the crit chance per stack was increased. So at 8 stacks, you still get the same 20% max crit chance. So now, it's faster for Bruno to reach his full crit potential. And they also lowered the mana cost of his skill 1 to help him out more during the early game laning phase. As for Roger, who we rarely see these days, they removed the backswing from his basic attacks in human form. They also reduced the foreswing and backswing time on his skill 1 in human form, so your micro with Roger will feel a lot smoother now. They also lowered the cooldown of his ultimate in the early game. Could Gold Lane Roger make a comeback in the meta? And Natan got a follow-up buff after his recent one. They reduced his skill 1 cooldown by 1 second in the late game to help him stack a bit quicker. Now for the mages, Lylia got a super solid buff on her skill 2. It now has a flat 6-second cooldown at all levels, which is a huge help in the early game. They also lowered the mana cost and boosted the damage, so we'll definitely feel Lylia's impact much earlier in the game. They also changed Gloom's mechanic. Before, only the max level Gloom, or the biggest one, would restore 50% of Shadow Energy's cooldown when it hit an enemy hero. Now, any Gloom hit will restore 20% of the cooldown, even from the first one. But they lowered Gloom's damage scaling per level, from 30% to 20%, to tone down its power a bit. Looks like Lylia might be making a comeback on the meta, especially with utility junglers rising again. Moving on to Kadita, who just got another buff. Her ultimate can no longer be interrupted, except by suppression. So it's much harder to cancel Kadita's combo now, since only suppression can stop her ultimate. But keep in mind that if the suppression is mistimed, her ultimate can still go through even while she's being suppressed. They also slightly reduced the foreswing time of her ultimate, and you'll definitely notice it, because it activates much faster now. Meanwhile, they also speed up the airborne delay of her skill 2, so the knockup happens faster, plus its mana cost has been reduced. Also, her skill 1 now costs less mana, but they slowed it down slightly, probably to make sure her combo still takes a bit of skill to pull off. They also boosted her movement speed from 240 to 255, so you'll need to watch out for Kadita, because she can now rotate faster and her combo feels a lot smoother now. As for Kagura, her shield gain from her passive has been buffed, and they also added a new effect to her skill 2, where she now gets brief crowd control immunity when removing debuffs. Sadly, there's no damage buff for her, so we'll have to see in the coming days if these changes will actually have impact on her performance. And for Odette, they reduced the mana cost of her skill 1 and ultimate, so she won't run out of mana as quickly in the early game. They also reduced the foreswing of her skill 2 by 25% and removed the backswing entirely, making the skill feel a lot smoother to use. Now for the XP lane, the lane with the most buffed heroes this patch, starting off with Arlott. They added base healing, 70 to 270, to Arlott's skill 2, so even if you build defense items, you still get decent sustain from it. A new effect was also added. Arlott now gains a brief burst of movement speed when hitting marked targets. Then his ultimate got a new effect. Every time you level it up, it reduces the cooldown of his passive by 1 second. From the original 7 seconds, it'll go down to just 4 seconds once your ult is maxed. And, just like Kadita, only suppression can interrupt its casting now. Next up, they improved Yuzhong's passive. Moonton didn't specify the exact healing buff, but they mentioned optimizing the Xia residue's flight speed to make his HP recovery more efficient. On top of that, they gave a massive boost to his durability, increasing his bonus HP in Black Dragon and Dragonoid forms from 600 to 1000 to 1000 to 2000. Next, they buffed Minsithar's passive. Its base damage and regen went from 300 to 400, giving him better sustain in the early game. Same with Arlott. Moonton wants to tone down the scaling from physical items, so they lowered the scaling on Minsithar's skill 2 and added flat base damage instead. In return, the cooldown of skill 2 is now just 4 seconds at all levels, which is a really solid update for Minsitthar. It makes his skill more spammable and reliable in the laning phase and throughout the game. They also changed the bonus damage scaling from 200% extra physical attack to just 40% total physical attack. It's clear that Moonton wants XP laners to lean more toward being tanky and durable, rather than full burst damage. For X.Borg, they doubled the number of rotations on his ultimate from 7 to 14, but they lowered the damage scaling per hit. This change shifts his role from being burst heavy to more of a sustained DPS fighter, making him more effective with tank or utility builds in longer fights, especially in the XP lane. They also added a new effect, where Faraga supplies touched during his ultimate will not be absorbed immediately. Instead, they'll all be absorbed at once right after the ultimate ends. Moving on to Uranus, his passive now lets his basic attacks deal magic damage that scales with both his radiant stacks and physical attack. So at full stacks, he can deal around 333 damage without any items. Meanwhile, his first skill now deals bonus magic damage based on his radiant stacks, and the old effect where it applied stacks and increased damage per hit has been removed. This update is good for Uranus, especially now that he benefits more when he's able to maintain his radiant stacks. Meanwhile, Lapu-Lapu's skill 2 in Great Sword Stance got a big upgrade. He now instantly gains 30% damage reduction when hitting an enemy hero, plus an extra 8% for every additional hero hit, making him much tougher in teamfights. To balance it, cooldown was increased, and the damage reduction duration was cut to 3 seconds. Also, the cooldown of his skill 1 in Greatsword Stance was reduced, and now only suppression can interrupt it. For Terizla, Moonton said he's been absent from the meta, so they gave him a slight buff to help him catch up, though it's nothing too major. Ruby also got a buff. Her passive-based spell vamp was increased from 5% to 6 to 20% that scales with level, which is a massive boost to her sustain, especially in longer fights. Meanwhile, they slightly reduce the defense she gains after dashing to balance things out, but it's a small trade-off, considering how much spell vamp she gets from this update. And lastly, the 3 heroes sitting on our bottom tier also received buffs. Paquito got reduced cooldowns on his skill 2 and ultimate. Aldous now uses less mana for his skill 1. And Esmeralda's ultimate now costs less mana and has a shorter cooldown. But is this enough for their overall win rate to increase? Now let's talk about the jungle role. There were a lot of mechanical changes this patch, but we'll start with the buffed heroes first, so you won't get confused. Let's start with Aamon, who got a lot of changes. His passive now gives a bigger movement speed boost from 60% to 80%. And instead of every enhanced basic attack reducing cooldowns, only the first one after leaving camouflage now reduces all skill cooldowns by 1 second. On top of that, Aamon's skill 1 now charges his shards faster, while in camouflage every 0.5 seconds instead of 1 second, making it easier to prepare his burst combo. They also removed the old mechanic where casting skills gave charges, shifting the focus to staying in camouflage to stack faster. Also, its 4-swing time got reduced by 25%, and its cooldown scales down to 5.5 seconds in the late game, making Aamon's in and out combos feel much smoother and faster now. And the cooldowns of his skill 2 and ultimate were also reduced, so is it possible for Aamon to become a meta pick? Next is Helcurt. His first skill now reveals the position of enemies affected by Terrify, so even if they walk into a bush while under its effect, you'll still be able to see them. They also removed the delay after casting Helcurt's ultimate. Now, enemy vision is restricted instantly as soon as it's cast. On top of that, they increased the extra physical attack bonus from 42% to 50%, and added a new effect where Skill 2 now prioritizes enemies affected by Skill 1's Terrify. So even if you just spam it, it'll hit the right target. But they lowered Helcurt's attack growth from 11.05 to 8 to tone down his damage and make him less overwhelming. Lancelot got a great buff. His mark duration is now shorter from 5 seconds down to 3 seconds, making it easier to reset his dash quickly, and they also increased his base damage for better burst early on. For sure, expect Lancelot mains to start popping up in ranked match and pro scene again. Next is Gusion, who is previously placed in our lowest tier, just got a solid buff. His skill 2 now has a flat 9-second cooldown at all levels. And they also reduced his ultimate's cooldown, which is super helpful, since once Gusion uses all his skills, he usually has nothing left to do but run. On top of that, the second cost of his ultimate now dashes 33% farther and 66% faster, a huge help for chasing down targets or escaping after using all his skills. As for Nolan, they slightly improved his early game by increasing his passive's energy region from 15 to 20 and bumping up his base damage from 220 to 240, giving him better sustain and more pressure in early trades. That energy buff is actually a big deal. With plus 5 more energy per passive activation, Nolan can cast his skills more frequently, especially in the early game where every combo really matters. Stay tuned for the next video, where we'll cover the nerfed heroes, jungle adjustments, the new resilience effect against knockups, and much more.